I want to give you guys a reaction to this, what happening in France, because you have many people in the West and the media coverage saying that Putin is weakened, and they always running stories about all the problems that China is going through. But you have France that face massive NATO protests. You had England economy that destabilized. They can't keep a prime minister. You had Emmanuel Macron who lost majority, and people are against him. But meanwhile, they talk about how weak Putin is. But you had massive protests in the United States in 2020 over police brutality. And the reason why this protest is so large, the same way the 2020 protest was so large, the reason why you see all these spontaneous protests in the West is because people sense that something is wrong. Like, it's not just because of one incident. Obviously, I think the French, they take way less bullshit than we do, because as Americans justify the fascist authoritarian use of violence by our occupiers known as the police, the French see someone die and they're ready to hit the street. But I think this is boiled up frustration over neoliberalism and the hypocrisy of the West being exposed, and the people have an intense hatred of their government. And no matter how you feel about Putin and Xi Jinping, their approval rating destroys the approval ratings of the countries in the West. And I'm going to show you guys just a few images. I love this tweet here. This tweet says, "It's finally happening. The countless sanctions on Russia has taken their toll, and people have begun to revolt against the Putin government." Just kidding. This is France. and that's why I talk like that, because the way they talk about our enemies and how I talk about our country. Because go ahead, Lee, Kev, Lee, if you want to.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, some people say this is the sanctions on Russia that have backfired and are harming Europeans and Americans. But in many regards, this is not actually backfiring. This is part of the U.S. goal, was to put the European states back in a vassal state position, you know, harm their economies. Blowing up the Nord Stream obviously harmed Germany and European nations immensely. And so part of this was the goal for the U.S. Much of it has backfired in a way that the U.S. elite did not intend for. But this part about European suffering, and they have largely been pushed back into a feudal position underneath the United States, because many of them, you know, especially France and Germany, were growing outside of their chains to the United States. Were cooperating with Russia. Were cooperating economically, and so this is. I mean, it's not completely the fault of the proxy war, but a lot of this is the economic stress from the proxy war, and these countries many of them have fallen into line with the United States underneath this situation. However, also Macron the other day did say that France is looking into joining BRICS, which would be a huge punch to the face of the United States.
I saw that headline. I was like, no way, that'd be so base. But anyway,
do you think that the United States is trying to put the Europe back into a vassal state? Do you think the European elites are going along with it, or they're doing it in spite, or they don't know? For example, like the Nord Stream pipeline, obviously Germany, they felt, the United States felt some type of way that they're making this pipeline or trying to do this pipeline with Russia, and so. Do you think the elites are in on selling out the European people, or do you think they're doing it the United States is doing it in spite or in secret without the elites knowing?
I would imagine that a lot of them feel their hands are tied. I mean, the U.S. is too powerful. They're afraid to go against the U.S. in this situation right now. But, some of them, I mean, the thing is, they are also insulated. Like most of them are incredibly rich. So they don't really care about the people. So, it's not exactly a lot of sweat off their back if the people are suffering. But yeah, I think some of them know. Some of them are as dumb as our lawmakers, and they just fall for it.
You gotta see how Bolsonaro's in Miami, so I think these leaders, like, if we destroy our nations on behalf of the United States, they will give us a mansion. They take care of us. But Garland, go ahead if you want to chime in.
I think the other thing to understand about this French situation is that some of it is again a result of imperialism and colonialism. If you look at the guy, he's a brown gentleman, right? Shockingly enough, the police have shot another brown gentleman. But the particular neighborhood that he was in is a lot of Muslim of people, a lot of people of color, Black people, Africans, etc. What people have to understand is that in France, they don't have birthright citizenship. So you have someone who their parents or their grandparents came to France during a time when their country was colonialized, but they still didn't get citizenship. They can't get any of the benefits. They can't work above above the table. They got to work under the table. So they're basically living in France, born in France, parents born in France, some grandparents born in France. But as a result of the colonialist actions of Europe, they cannot have a normal life. And so there's a lot of poverty and desperation. And of course, you know what that means. You get a lot of Black or Muslim or African people, poverty and desperation. They're going to be heavily, overly policed. And you're going to end up with this kind of thing. So this isn't just by happenstance in France. It's similar to the colonialization that the U.S. does, the imperialism around the world, and the people in their own country are dealing with being colonized people who are living in that colonial power, just as Black people experience in America today.